6 months after the destruction of the Void Hunter fleet, the galaxy had settled into an uneasy new equilibrium. The Galactic Defense Alliance's council chambers now looked very different during meetings. Where once alien commanders had dismissed human input with barely concealed contempt, they now listened carefully to every word spoken by Earth's representatives. Ambassador Kim Sung-ho had been promoted to Supreme Military Advisor, a position created specifically to ensure that humanity's strategic insights were properly utilized. The irony wasn't lost on him. The same beings who had called humans cowards now begged for their protection. "The hegemony of Scales is requesting a mutual defense pact," reported his aide, Lieutenant Commander Bae Min-ji. "They're the third major power to make such a request this week." Kim nodded, reviewing the proposal on his datapad. The hegemony had been one of the most vocal critics of human military doctrine. Now they were offering exclusive trading rights and territorial concessions in exchange for the promise that Earth's special forces would respond to any existential threat they faced. "What does Earth Command think?" Kim asked. "Admiral Park says we should accept selective agreements, but make it clear that Earth's protection comes with expectations. Our allies will be expected to meet certain standards in how they treat their own people and conduct interstellar relations." It was a new concept in galactic politics, a major power that offered protection not in exchange for tribute or subservience, but for ethical behavior. Several smaller civilizations had already begun implementing reforms to qualify for Earth's friendship. Meanwhile, in the Outer Rim territories, the reputation of Earth's special forces had taken on almost mythological proportions. Pirates who had once preyed on human merchant vessels now went out of their way to avoid any ship flying Earth's flag. Slavers had stopped raiding colonies under human protection after 3 separate operations had resulted in the complete disappearance of their fleets. Captain Lee Dong-wook and his team had become legends, though they themselves remained in the shadows. Stories were told in 100 languages about the human shadows who could appear anywhere, eliminate any threat, and vanish without trace. Most of these stories were wildly exaggerated, but the team preferred it that way. Fear was a weapon as effective as any in their arsenal. The Void Hunters, meanwhile, had virtually disappeared from known space. The few survivors of their once mighty empire had retreated to the darkest corners of the galaxy, warning others of their kind to avoid any system where humans might be present. Their civilization, which had terrorized the galaxy for millennia, effectively ceased to exist as a major threat. "Sir," Sergeant Choi Hye-jin reported to Captain Lee during one of their rare briefings on Earth. "Intelligence indicates that several hostile species are attempting to form an alliance specifically to counter human influence. They call themselves the Pure Galaxy Coalition." Lee smiled, the expression as cold as ever. "Let them come. The galaxy needed to learn this lesson eventually. Now they understand that there are consequences for threatening peaceful civilizations. Some will choose to be our friends, others will choose to be our enemies. Both groups will discover that humans keep their promises." The transformation of humanity's role in galactic society was complete. No longer seen as weak or cowardly, they had become the galaxy's unofficial peacekeepers, not through conquest or domination, but through the simple understanding that some beings were willing to do terrible things to protect those who couldn't protect themselves. As Ambassador Kim looked out at the stars from his office window, he reflected on how far humanity had come. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans were made of when pushed to their limits. Now they knew. The question was whether they could handle living in a universe where Earth's children had finally stopped pretending to be harmless. The age of humanity hiding in the shadows was over. The age of the American Boogeymen had begun, and the galaxy would never be the same. News of the Void. Hunter fleet's complete destruction traveled across the galaxy faster than light itself. In council chambers and military academies, on trade stations and frontier worlds, beings who had mocked humanity's military abilities now spoke in whispers about the American Boogeymen. Admiral Crix's final transmission before his flagship exploded had been picked up by intelligence networks everywhere. The proud void. Hunter Commander's voice, broken and defeated, became the most listened to recording in galactic history. "They do not fight like civilized beings," his terrified voice said over and over again on news broadcasts across 1,000 worlds. "They fight like the darkness between stars given physical form. Whatever you do, do not let them know you are their enemy. Do not even let them know you exist." At the Galactic Defense Alliance headquarters, the mood had changed completely. The same alien commanders who had laughed at Ambassador Kim Sung-ho just days before now requested private meetings with Earth's representative. They wanted to understand how humanity had hidden such devastating capabilities for so long. General Korath of the Crystal Worlds was the first to approach Kim privately. His crystalline body was making nervous chiming sounds as he spoke. "Ambassador, we may have seriously misjudged your people's true capabilities," he said. Kim smiled politely, but there was something different in his expression now, something that made the Crystal General feel uncomfortable. "General, you saw exactly what you were meant to see. Earth has always believed in giving proportional responses. When dealing with beings who respected diplomacy, we were diplomatic. When facing those who only understood strength, well, you have seen the results." "But how?" General Korath asked. His voice was full of confusion and fear. "Your previous military actions showed nothing like this level of capability. Where did these soldiers come from?" "Because those were not military actions," Kim replied calmly. "Those were police actions. When humans go to war, real war, we become something entirely different. This revelation sent shockwaves through the galactic community. Intelligence agencies began frantically reviewing every interaction they had ever had with humanity, looking for signs they had missed. What they discovered terrified them beyond measure. Earth's defensive fleet positions had actually been perfect staging areas for offensive operations. Their cautious withdrawal tactics had been textbook examples of strategic positioning. Their support roles had placed them exactly where they needed to be to cut off enemy escape routes. "They have been playing us," Commander Vex whispered to his aide. His reptilian features were pale with fear. "Every battle, every engagement, they have been studying us, learning our weaknesses, preparing for this exact moment." The implications were staggering. For 5 years, humanity had been pretending to be weak and cowardly while secretly analyzing every species in the galaxy. They had mapped out military capabilities, political structures, and social weaknesses of every major power. Back on Earth, in facilities buried so deep that most humans did not know they existed, Colonel Park Minsu was briefing officers whose existence was denied even by the people who had created their units. "The galaxy now knows we exist," Colonel Park said to the assembled commanders. His scarred face was grim but satisfied. "Some species will try to become our allies. Others will see us as a threat that must be eliminated. Both reactions will provide us with valuable intelligence about their true intentions regarding humanity." Major Kwak Ja-kyung, one of the youngest and most lethal officers in the room, raised her hand. "Sir, what about the species that were already our allies? The ones who fought beside our regular forces? They will have questions," Park replied. "Questions we will answer honestly within security limits. Our friends deserve to know that when they stand with humanity, they stand with beings who will go to any length necessary to protect them. Our enemies need to understand that threatening humanity or our allies means facing complete extinction." The meeting continued for hours as they planned operations that would not begin for years, but would reshape the balance of power throughout the galaxy. Earth had spent centuries preparing for this revelation, understanding that once the universe knew what humanity was truly capable of, everything would change. Meanwhile, across known space, the reactions varied wildly. Some smaller civilizations immediately sent diplomatic missions to Earth, offering alliance agreements and mutual defense pacts. They had seen what happened to those who threatened humanity and wanted to be on the winning side. Other species particularly, those who had been most vocal in their criticism of human co. 3 days after the ground battle, Admiral Crix arrived with the main Void Hunter fleet. He was the supreme commander of their entire military, and he had personally come to find out what had happened to his ground forces. In his 1,000 years of life, he had conquered more planets than most species had ever seen. Admiral Crix was even bigger than regular Void Hunters. His armor was black as space and covered with symbols of his victories. His ship was the size of a small moon and carried enough weapons to destroy entire solar systems. He had never lost a battle, and he did not plan to start now. "Show me the battlefield," he commanded his officers as his massive flagship entered orbit around the planet. The images that came up on his screens made even this ancient warrior pause, in shock. His soldiers had not just been defeated, they had been hunted like animals. Bodies were arranged in patterns that looked like some kind of message written in death. Some had been killed from distances that should have been impossible for any weapon. Others had been eliminated in close combat that no creature should have survived. All of them showed signs that they had died afraid and confused. "Who did this?" Admiral Crix demanded. His voice was like thunder in the command center. "The humans, sir," his intelligence officer replied. "Reports say they used a small special operations unit." "How many humans?" 12 soldiers, sir." The silence in the flagship's command center was complete. 12 humans had done something that entire alien armies had failed to do. They had made the Void Hunters look weak and afraid. Admiral Crix had seen many strange things in his long life, but this was beyond his understanding. Humans were supposed to be weak cowards who ran from real fights. How could 12 of them eliminate 300? Of his best warriors, prepare the extinction protocol he finally ordered. We will destroy this entire planet from orbit. No species that can create soldiers like this will be allowed to continue existing. The extinction protocol was the Void Hunter's ultimate weapon. It involved using their most powerful guns to heat up a planet's surface until everything on it was burned to ash. They had used it to destroy civilizations that became too dangerous to leave alive. But as the Void Hunter fleet began powering up their planet-killing weapons, something unexpected happened. New contacts began appearing on their sensors. Ships were dropping out of hyperspace all around the planet. These were not the usual human vessels that the aliens knew about. Those ships were sleek and diplomatic-looking. These new ships were predators made of metal and darkness. They were black as the void between stars and covered with weapons that looked wrong somehow. Leading the human fleet was a ship that did not exist in any official records. It was called the CNV Silent Death, and it was commanded by Admiral Yoon Jae-sung. This man was a legend that most humans had never heard of. He had spent 30 years fighting wars that the galaxy would never know about. "Admiral, we are being contacted by the alien fleet," his weapons officer reported. "They are demanding that we withdraw or be destroyed." Admiral Yoon looked at the tactical display showing the enemy fleet. There were over 200 Void Hunter ships, including the massive flagship. Any normal fleet would have been completely outmatched, but this was not a normal fleet. "Open a channel to all ships in the system," he ordered. It is time they understood what they are dealing with. The message that went out across space would be remembered by every species in the galaxy. This is the Terran Special Operations Fleet. You have attacked our allies and threatened our people. We are here to collect a debt that must be paid in blood. No mercy asked, none given. The Void Hunters responded the way they always did, with overwhelming firepower. Their massive ships launched attacks that had previously turned entire fleets into cosmic dust. Energy beams that could melt asteroids reached out toward the human ships. But the human ships moved like they were alive. They danced between the attacks with impossible grace. Their movements were so smooth and coordinated that they looked like they were controlled by a single mind instead of individual crews. Then the humans began to return fire. Their weapons were unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. Instead of energy beams or explosive missiles, they fired projectiles that seemed to bend space around them. The laws of physics seemed to change wherever these weapons struck. Void Hunter ships that had survived battles against entire civilizations found their hulls being torn apart by attacks that ignored their shields completely. Their armor that had protected them for centuries became useless against weapons that worked in ways no one understood. Commander Cha So-young led her fighter squadron directly into the heart of the enemy formation. Her small ships moved like a school of hunting fish. Each pilot was connected to the others through technology that let them think as one being. They struck weak points in the Void Hunter ships with surgical precision. Massive vessels that had seemed invincible became floating debris in minutes. The fighters moved so fast and so perfectly coordinated that the enemy could not target them. "How are they doing this?" Admiral Crix shouted at his tactical officers. "Our ships are bigger and stronger in every way. How are these small human ships?" "Defeating us or their technology appears to be based on principles we do not understand," his chief scientist replied. "They are not using energy weapons like we know them. They are manipulating matter at levels we cannot detect, and their coordination is impossible. It is like they share a single consciousness." The battle that followed would be studied in military schools across the galaxy for generations. The Void Hunters, despite having more ships and more powerful weapons, found themselves being systematically destroyed by human forces that fought like nothing anyone had ever seen. The human tactics combined high technology with something primal and savage. They fought with precision but also with a fury that seemed to come from the depths of their species' soul. Every shot was perfect. Every movement was calculated. Every decision led to maximum damage to their enemies. Admiral Crix watched his mighty fleet being reduced to scrap metal and floating bodies. Ships that had conquered star systems were being torn apart by weapons that should not have existed. Crews that had fought for centuries were dying in ways they had never imagined possible. His own flagship was taking damage that its armor should have prevented. Systems were failing in patterns that made no sense. The humans were not just attacking his ship. They were dissecting it like scientists studying an interesting specimen. With his fleet in ruins and his flagship dying around him, Admiral Crix finally understood what they were facing. These were not the diplomatic humans that the galaxy knew. These were predators from a world that had taught its children to be monsters. Then it had hidden those monsters until the right moment to unleash them. Warning to all Void Hunter forces, he broadcast on all frequencies. His voice was broken and filled with fear. "Avoid the humans at all costs. They are not what they appear to be. They are something far worse than we ever imagined. Do not engage them. Do not threaten them. Do not even let them know you exist." It was the first time in Void Hunter history that their supreme commander had ordered a retreat. It was the first time they had ever admitted that another species was stronger than they were. It was the first time they had ever been afraid. As Admiral Crix's flagship exploded in a ball of fire, the human fleet regrouped around the planet they had come to protect. They had not lost a single ship. They had destroyed an enemy that had terrorized the galaxy for centuries, and they had done it so easily that it looked like they were barely trying. Admiral Yoon stood on the bridge of the Silent Death and watched the last Void Hunter ship flee into hyperspace. His face showed no emotion, but inside he felt satisfied. The galaxy had wanted to see what humans could do when pushed too far. Now they knew. The age of hiding was over. The American Boogeymen had announced themselves to the universe, and nothing would ever be the same again. The Void Hunters had never felt fear before. For 1,000 years they had swept across the galaxy like a terrible storm. Every planet they found became their food. Every species they met became their victims. They were the ultimate predators, and they knew it. These creatures stood 8 feet tall, and their bodies were covered in natural armor that could stop most weapons. Their faces looked like skulls with rows of sharp teeth. Their claws could tear through metal like it was paper. They had 4 arms and moved faster than most beings could see. As their drop pods crashed around Firebase Omega, the Void Hunters began to come out. They expected this to be like every other battle. They would charge forward in huge groups. They would use their size and strength to crush their enemies. It always worked. The alien defenders at the base got ready for the usual attack. They had fought Void Hunters before and knew how scary it was. The monsters would run straight at them, making horrible sounds. There would be lots of shooting and explosions. Many aliens would die, but some might survive. But something strange started happening. The first group of Void Hunters came out of their pods and began moving toward the base. Then one by one they just disappeared, not killed by big explosions or cut down by energy beams. They just vanished like they had never been there at all. "What is happening out there?" General Zephyrus demanded. His metal feathers were shaking with fear. He was watching his screens but could not understand what he was seeing. "Sir, we are losing contact with the Void Hunter advance units," his communications officer said. The officer's voice was full of panic. "Our sensors show them moving forward, but then their life signs just stop existing." The aliens could not see what was happening in the shadows between the rocks. They did not know that death was moving among their enemies like a ghost. Sergeant Choi Hae-jin had become one with the darkness itself. She had trained on Earth in places so dangerous that most humans would die just from being there. She knew how to move without making sound. She knew how to hide where no one would look. Most important, she knew how to kill things much bigger than herself. The Void Hunters had natural camouflage that made them hard to see, but Choi could see them perfectly. Her eyes had been changed by Earth science to see things that normal people could not. Heat signatures, movement patterns, the weak spots in their armor that they did not know they had. Her weapons were not like anything the aliens used. Instead of energy beams, they fired solid projectiles that moved faster than sound. These projectiles were made of materials that did not exist anywhere else in the galaxy. They went through Void Hunter armor like it was made of air. She had already killed 6 of the creatures without them even knowing she was there. Each kill was perfect and silent. The Void Hunters were predators, but Earth had taught humans to be something much worse. High up on a cliff that should have been impossible to climb, Corporal Nam Woo Jin was watching the battle through a scope that showed him more than just what normal eyes could see. He could see the heat from their bodies. He could see how they moved. He could see exactly where to shoot to kill them instantly. His rifle did not make the sharp crack of energy weapons that the aliens were used to. Instead, it made a soft whisper that sent death across impossible distances. Void Hunters would be leading their groups one moment, then simply fall down dead the next. The creatures could not understand what was happening to them. They were being killed by something they could not see or hear. Their natural senses that had made them perfect hunters were useless against these human soldiers. But it was Captain Lee who made the enemy truly afraid. He did not hide in shadows or shoot from far away. Instead, he walked right into the middle of the Void Hunter formation. He moved through their ranks like a ghost that had decided to become solid. His weapons were different from his team. He carried blades that seemed to cut through reality itself. He had devices that turned the aliens' own strength against them. When a Void Hunter tried to grab him with its powerful claws, it would somehow end up hurting itself instead. The Void Hunters tried to swarm him. They were confident that their numbers would overwhelm any single enemy. 50 of them surrounded Captain Lee, expecting to tear him apart in seconds. They learned too late that this human had not come to fight fair. He moved among them like wind, through grass. Every step he took put him in exactly the right place to avoid their attacks. Every swing of his strange weapons killed or disabled another enemy. He fought with knowledge gained from every war humanity had ever fought. The aliens at the base watched in amazement as their screens showed impossible things happening. A single human was surrounded by dozens of the galaxy's most feared killers, and he was winning. Not just surviving, but actually winning. "Impossible," General Zephyrus whispered. His voice was so quiet that only his closest officers could hear him. "How are they doing this? These are just humans. How can they fight like this?" The answer came from his intelligence officer, who had been frantically searching Earth's databases for information. "Sir, I have found fragments about these humans. They are not regular soldiers. They are from something called Special Operations. Earth has been training warriors like this for hundreds of years, but they have never used them in galactic conflicts before." This news made the general feel even more afraid. If Earth had been hiding soldiers like this, what else were they hiding? What other surprises did humans have that no one knew about? As the sun began to set over Firebase Omega, something incredible had happened. An entire Void Hunter assault force of over 300 creatures had been eliminated. Not one alien defender had been killed. The humans had done it all by themselves without even asking for help. The battle had not lasted hours like usual. It had taken less than 2 hours from start to finish. The Void Hunters, who had conquered countless worlds, had been completely destroyed by 12 human soldiers. General Zephyrus walked out to see the battlefield for himself. What he found there would give him nightmares for the rest of his life. The Void Hunter bodies were positioned in ways that showed this had not been just about killing. It had been about sending a message. Some of the creatures had been killed from distances that should have been impossible. Others had been eliminated in close combat that no being should have been able to survive. All of them looked like they had been hunted by something that understood war better than they did. Captain Lee stood among the bodies of his enemies, cleaning his weapons with slow, careful movements. He looked perfectly calm, like he had just finished a normal day of work. When he saw the general approaching, he nodded politely. "Is this what humans call support?" General Zephyrus asked. His voice was shaking, and he could not make it stop. No Captain Lee replied. His voice was still quiet, but now the general could hear something in it that made his feathers stand up straight. "This is what we call a warning. The real war has not started yet." Through his communication system, Lee could hear the panicked voices of alien commanders trying to understand what had happened. He allowed himself a small smile as he activated his long-range transmitter to call back to Earth. "Control this. Is Boogeyman actual? Phase 1 complete. Request permission to show them what humans do when you threaten our friends." The response from Earth came back immediately. "Permission granted. Show them why we are called the American Boogeymen." General Zephyrus heard this exchange and felt something he had never experienced before in his long military career. He felt truly afraid of an ally. These humans were on his side, but now he wondered if that was a good thing or a terrible thing. In space above the planet, sensors detected new contacts. The main Void Hunter fleet was coming, and they were bringing everything they had. But now the general wondered who should be more afraid. The Void Hunters who thought they were coming to destroy a weak planet, or the humans who were waiting for them with cold, patient smiles. Firebase Omega sat on a rocky planet near the edge of known space. This was where the Alliance kept their biggest army. Thousands of alien soldiers lived here. They had big guns and strong walls. They thought they were ready for anything. General Zephyrus was in charge of this place. He came from the Bird Empire. His people looked like giant eagles with metal feathers. When he was angry, his feathers would stand up and make noise like swords hitting each other. Today, he was very angry. More human ships were coming. He could see them on his screens landing on the big flat areas where ships touched down. General Zephyrus did not want more humans here. Every time humans came to help, they just got in the way. "Why do they keep sending us these useless humans?" he said to his helper. His voice sounded like a big bird screaming. "We have real soldiers here. We do not need more cowards to protect." But something was different about these ships. They were black as space itself. They had no names or symbols on them. When they landed, they made almost no sound. Most ships made lots of noise when they came down, but these moved like ghosts. The doors of the ships opened. What came out made even the bravest alien soldiers stop what they were doing and stare. These humans looked nothing like the ones who had come before. They moved without making any sound. Their clothes were black and seemed to eat light. Their faces were painted to look like skulls. Their eyes were cold like winter nights. Even their breathing made no sound. Leading them was a human who made the aliens feel afraid just by looking at him. His name was Captain Lee Dong-wook. He was tall and built like a predator. His face had scars that told stories of fights no one wanted to hear about. Behind him came his team. Each one looked like they could kill with just their hands. Sergeant Choi Hai-jin carried weapons that the aliens had never seen before. These weapons hummed with energy that made the air feel dangerous. She moved like a dancer, but her eyes promised death. Corporal Nam Woo-jin was huge, even for a human. His body was covered in gear that looked more like armor from nightmares than normal soldier equipment. When he walked, the ground seemed to shake a little. Other humans came out of the ships, too. All of them had the same cold look in their eyes. All of them moved the same way without sound. All of them carried weapons that looked wrong somehow, like they were made for killing things that should not die. "What unit are these humans from General Zephyrus?" asked his intelligence officer. His metal feathers were standing up now. He could feel that these humans were different, and it scared him. "Sir, there are no records of these soldiers in any database," the officer said. His voice was shaking. "According to our scans, they do not officially exist." This made the general even more worried. How could soldiers exist without being in databases? Every military unit in the galaxy was recorded somewhere, but these humans were like ghosts that had somehow become real. The human team worked in complete silence. They used hand signals that were too fast and complex for the aliens to understand. Within 1 hour, they had built their own small base. It did not look like a military camp. It looked more like a place where hunters lived. Their equipment was strange, too. Instead of the usual tents and temporary buildings, they put up structures that seemed to blend into the rocks around them. Unless you looked very carefully, you could not see them at all. When Captain Lee finally walked to the command center, his presence made the air feel cold. General Zephyrus found himself stepping backward, even though he was supposed to be in charge here. The human captain was not very big, but something about him made the alien general feel like prey. "Captain, your orders are to support our defensive positions against the Void Hunter advance," General Zephyrus said. He tried to sound like he was in control. "You will work with our existing forces and follow our battle plans." "And no," said Lee. His voice was so quiet it was almost a whisper, but somehow everyone in the room heard it clearly. "We do not support. We hunt." Before anyone could ask what he meant, alarms started going off all over the base. The sound was loud and scary. It meant that enemies were coming. The Void Hunters were attacking again. Big enemy ships appeared in the sky above them. These ships were dark and ugly, like giant insects made of metal. They blocked out the sun and made everything below them cold and dark. The aliens had seen these ships before, and they always meant death and destruction. The alien defenders ran to their fighting positions. They expected the humans to go to the safe areas in the back, like they always did before. Human soldiers were supposed to stay away from real danger and let the aliens do the fighting. Instead, Captain Lee smiled. It was not a nice smile. It was the kind of smile that made several aliens reach for their weapons without thinking. They felt like they were looking at something that wanted to hurt them. Finally, he said to his team through their private communication system, "Time to show them what Earth's children can really do." The first void. Hunter pods started falling from the sky like black rain. These pods carried the enemy soldiers to the ground. Usually when this happened, the aliens would get ready for a big fight with lots of shooting and explosions. But Captain Lee and his team did something that no one expected. They disappeared. One moment they were standing in the command center, and the next moment, they were gone. Even the aliens with the best eyes and the most sensitive equipment could not see where they went. General Zephyrus looked at his screens trying to find the human soldiers. His scanners showed nothing. It was like they had never existed at all. But the general had a feeling that the Void Hunters were about to learn something very unpleasant about these strange humans from Earth. The first Void Hunter pod crashed into the rocky ground about a mile from the base. These pods were big and made deep holes when they hit. Steam and smoke came out of them as they opened up like metal flowers. The creatures that came out were the stuff of nightmares. Void Hunters were 8 feet tall with armor that covered their whole bodies. Their faces looked like skulls with too many teeth. They had claws that could cut through metal and strength that could crush rocks. For hundreds of years, these monsters had conquered planet after planet. No army had ever stopped them. They moved in groups and killed everything they found. Today, they expected to do the same thing they had done 1,000 times before. But today was going to be different. Today, they were about to meet humans who had been trained to hunt monsters. Today, they were going to learn why some humans were called Boogeymen. In the shadows between the rocks, something was watching them. Something that knew how to kill things much bigger and stronger than itself. Something that had been waiting for this moment for a very long time. The hunt was about to begin. The big meeting room was full of angry voices. Alien leaders from all over the galaxy sat around a huge table. They were mad and scared. The Void Hunters had attacked 3 more planets last week. These monsters ate everything they found. They destroyed whole worlds and killed millions of beings. Commander Vex hit the table hard with his scaly fist. His yellow snake eyes looked around the room. He was from the Reptile Empire. His people looked like giant lizards that walked on 2 legs. They were mean fighters, but even they were afraid of the Void Hunters. General Korath was there too. He came from the crystal worlds. His body was made of living crystal that shined in the light. When he talked, his voice sounded like music, but today he was not happy. The crystal people were smart and strong, but they could not stop the Void Hunters either. Ambassador Thane floated in his special suit. He needed it to live because he came from the gas giant colonies. His people lived in the clouds of big planets. They were good at making things fly, but flying away from the Void Hunters was getting harder. Many other aliens were in the room. There were bird people with metal feathers. There were rock people who looked like walking mountains. There were energy beings that looked like floating lights. All of them were scared of the Void Hunters. In one corner sat a human. His name was Kim Sung-ho. He was the person who spoke for Earth in this big meeting. Kim was not very tall. He had black hair and wore a simple blue suit. He looked normal compared to all the strange aliens around him. The aliens did not like humans very much. They thought humans were weak and scared. In the last 5 years, humans had joined many battles, but they always seemed to run away when things got dangerous. The aliens called it being smart, but they really thought it was being scared. Commander Vex stood up. His long tail moved back and forth like he was angry. When reptile people got mad, their tails moved a lot. Everyone knew this. Meant trouble. "Today we need real fighters," he said. His voice was like a snake hissing. "We cannot keep losing planets to these Void Hunters. We need beings who will stand and fight, not run away like scared children." He looked right at Kim when he said this. All the other aliens looked at the human, too. They were thinking the same thing. Humans always found reasons to leave battles, early. They said it was tactics, but everyone knew better. General Korath made a sound like breaking glass. That was how Crystal people laughed. "Remember the Battle of Nexus Prime," he said. "We needed the human ships to help us fight. But when the real fighting started, they said they had to go back for more fuel." Fuel. Can you believe that Ambassador Thane joined in? His voice came through a machine that made it sound strange. "My people fought next to humans 3 times," he said. "Every time they found excuses to stay far away from the enemy. They said they were giving support. Support is what you give to beings who cannot fight for themselves." More aliens started talking. They all had stories about humans running away from fights. The bird people said humans were too soft. The rock people said humans broke too easily. The energy beings said humans had no power in their hearts. Kim listened to all of this. He had heard it many times before. For 5 years he had sat in meetings like this. Every time there was a battle, the aliens expected humans to fight like them. They wanted humans to charge forward and fight with claws and teeth and energy weapons. But humans were different. Humans thought about fighting in ways that aliens did not understand. When aliens saw humans step back, they thought it was fear. They did not know that humans were looking for better ways to win. The room got louder. More. Aliens were telling stories about coward humans. They were getting excited and angry. Some of them were standing up and making threatening moves. Kim could see that they were close to saying humans should leave the alliance. Finally, Kim stood up. The room got quiet. All the strange eyes looked at him. Some aliens were twice as tall as him. Others had teeth as long as his fingers. But Kim did not look scared. Perhaps he said in a quiet voice, "You have never seen humans when they are truly threatened." The room exploded with laughter. It was not nice laughter. It was the kind of laughter that hurts feelings. Commander Vex laughed, so hard his scales rattled. General Korath made sounds like breaking crystal. Ambassador Thane made bubbling noises in his suit. "Threatened," said Commander Vex. "Your people run from shadows. What could make humans dangerous? You are soft and weak and small. You have no claws or teeth or armor. What threat could make cowards?" Into fighters, Kim looked around the room. He saw aliens who had fought in hundreds of battles. He saw beings who could tear apart metal with their hands. He saw creatures who could shoot energy from their eyes. They all thought humans were nothing special. But Kim knew something they did not know. He knew that humans had been in this galaxy for only 5 years. In that time, they had been very careful. They had watched and learned. They had made friends and found out who their enemies were. Most important, they had kept their most dangerous people hidden. Earth had soldiers that these aliens had never seen. Earth had weapons that no one in the galaxy knew about. Earth had been preparing for the day when someone would push them too far. That day was coming soon. "You want to know what real human soldiers look like?" Kim said. His voice was still quiet, but something in it made the laughing stop. "Fine. Earth will send our specialists." "Specialists," said General Korath. He was still making his crystal laugh sounds. "What specialists could cowards have? What could weak humans do that we cannot do better?" Kim reached for his communication device. It was a small thing that connected him to Earth instantly. No matter how far away Earth was, he could talk to people there in seconds. The message he was about to send would change everything. He pressed the button and spoke clearly. "Send the Boogeymen authorization code, Broken Arrow." The aliens did not know what those words meant. They did not know that Broken Arrow was a code that had not been used for 50 years on Earth. They did not know that Boogeymen was a name that made human generals wake up in cold sweats. On Earth, far away, in a place buried deep under the desert, a man got the message. His name was Colonel Park Min-Soo. He was old and had many scars on his face and hands. He had been waiting for this message for a long time. Park looked at the message again. After all these years, Earth was finally going to show the galaxy what humans could really do. He smiled, but it was not a happy smile. It was the kind of smile that meant someone was about to learn a very hard lesson. Within 1 hour, ships started leaving Earth. These were not the usual human ships. These were black and had no markings. They moved through space like hunting animals. Inside them were humans that the galaxy had never seen before. As these ships flew toward the battle zone, the aliens at the big meeting were still laughing. They thought they were about to see more human cowardice. They had no idea that Earth had been hiding its most dangerous children for decades. Soon they would meet the American Boogeymen. Soon they would learn why that name made even humans afraid.